A convergence of two major storm systems is about to deliver one of the most active 48-hour stretches the United States has seen in recent memory. And if you live anywhere from the Gulf Coast to the Carolina shoreline, you need to hear every word of what comes next. We are tracking a powerful cold front sweeping the East Coast, moored a deepening plume of tropical moisture, feeding an expanding flood threat, and Tropical Storm Bertha pushing toward landfall along the Gulf. Damaging wind gusts, isolated tornadoes, storm surge, and what could be genuinely catastrophic flash flooding are all on the table simultaneously. And the window for all of this is right now, beginning today and running through Thursday. The scale of this event is enormous, the timing is immediate, and the stakes for communities across a large portion of this country are very real. This is not a forecast you tune into casually. Let's get into exactly what you need to know, region by region, threat by threat. So here's the full picture of where things stand as we move through today and into tomorrow. And I want to walk you through everything carefully and in sequence, because there is a tremendous amount happening across multiple regions at exactly the same time. This is not a single threat situation. This is a multi-layered atmospheric event that is going to demand attention from viewers across a wide stretch of the country. And honestly, when you pull back and look at the whole map, the two biggest concerns are not even the severe thunderstorm risk. They are the flooding and Tropical Storm Bertha, two completely different atmospheric players converging on the same general region at the same general time. That kind of overlap is what makes the next 48 hours so difficult to navigate for communities that are already dealing with saturated ground and storm-weary populations. Let's start on the East Coast with what is happening right now today, because this is where the immediate danger is most concentrated and most likely to surprise people who are not paying attention. Yesterday was an extremely active and genuinely significant day of severe weather across the Ohio Valley and the Northeast. If you were not watching our live coverage, we tracked upwards of 10 to 20 tornadoes from Tennessee all the way back into New York, and over 300 individual wind reports were logged across that entire multi-state stretch in a single day. That is a widespread, significant, large-scale outbreak by any reasonable measure. The system responsible for producing all of that severe weather is still in play today, and right now it is sweeping eastward toward the coast, carrying its leftover atmospheric energy into a new set of vulnerable areas and communities that are waking up to a very different kind of weather day than they went to sleep expecting. The Storm Prediction Center currently has a slight risk of severe weather in place for the zone covering Richmond, Virginia, Virginia Beach, Kill Devil Hills, and Salisbury. Extending outward from that primary risk zone, there is also a marginal threat of severe weather reaching from northern Maine all the way back south into the Charlotte, North Carolina area. That is a large geographic footprint. And while today will not be a repeat of yesterday's widespread outbreak, there will be enough atmospheric instability and wind shear across specific corridors to produce targeted, localized severe weather events in particular communities, and those communities need to be ready. The primary concern across that slight risk zone is going to be damaging wind gusts, and we are talking about gusts potentially reaching 65 to 70 miles per hour in the most exposed coastal and near coastal areas. That range of wind speed is enough to down mature trees, snap power lines, damage roofing materials, flip lightweight vehicles on open highways, and create instantaneously dangerous driving conditions. If you live along the Virginia Beach shoreline, along the Outer Banks corridor, or inland toward Richmond and Salisbury, that wind threat is very real today, and you should take it seriously from the late morning hours onward. Beyond the damaging wind threat, there's also a real incredible chance for a tornado or two today across the state of Maine. And where an isolated rogue storm could tap into enhanced wind shear produced by a low-pressure system currently positioned over Canada. That low-pressure system is going to allow for increased vertical wind shear across the region, and that is the ingredient that gives supercell thunderstorms the rotational potential to produce tornadoes. The overall tornado risk in Maine is not high by any standard measurement. Significant tornado parameter values will be running somewhere between approximately 0 and 2 across that region. But even a brief, weak, isolated tornado is dangerous, and people across central and eastern Maine near Lewiston, Clayton Lake, and Presque Isle should stay on alert throughout the afternoon and early evening hours. The peak window for any severe weather up in Maine will run from roughly 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Time through approximately 7 o'clock tonight, and most of that activity should be clearing the region by around 8 this evening. Now back down toward the mid-Atlantic and southeast, the area that concerns me most from a severe weather standpoint today includes North Carolina, Virginia, Delaware, and Maryland. That is where the atmospheric setup for a couple of isolated tornadoes this afternoon and evening looks most credible, based on the available data. If you live in or around Raleigh, Greenville, Richmond, Salisbury, or Dover, please stay on elevated alert throughout the afternoon and into the evening hours for at least a low-end tornado risk. I want to be completely honest with you about the confidence level here. I am not highly confident that we will see a major tornado outbreak in these areas today, partly because there is already so much heavy rainfall training across the region from early this morning that it is suppressing some of the surface instability that would normally be needed for organized, rotating severe thunderstorms. But the potential for strong, damaging wind gusts and for brief, isolated tornadoes remains real enough that these areas absolutely should not let their guard down as we move through the afternoon. One rogue storm in the right spot can cause tremendous damage. I should also briefly mention that we have a marginal severe weather threat active across two completely separate areas today, one stretching out just east of Denver, Colorado, and another across parts of Oregon, where isolated damaging winds will be the main and primary concern. Neither of those setups looks particularly alarming at this moment, but viewers living in those regions should remain aware of the elevated risk for gusty, potentially damaging wind conditions as that energy pushes through their areas. Here is the thing, though, and this is the critical pivot in today's forecast. Severe weather, as real and as threatening as it is across parts of the East Coast today, is actually the secondary weather story. The primary story, the one that genuinely concerns me most when I look ahead at the next 24 to 48 hours, is the flooding threat. And it is not just significant. In some localized areas, it has the potential to be historically severe. Let me explain exactly why, because the meteorological setup here is complex and it deserves a careful, thorough explanation, so you fully understand what is coming. Right now, beginning already this morning, we have training showers and thunderstorms locked in from Knoxville, Tennessee, all the way northeast through to Virginia Beach. When storms train over the same geographic area repeatedly over multiple hours, they drop rain on top of rain on top of rain, and the soil and drainage infrastructure simply cannot absorb it fast enough. Standing water accumulates, streams exceed their banks, culverts overwhelm, and what begins as surface flooding becomes dangerous, fast-moving flash flooding within a matter of minutes. That training pattern is exactly what is setting up right now across this corridor, and it is going to continue well through the late morning hours into the afternoon. And well into tonight, there is simply a massive concentrated reservoir of atmospheric moisture sitting over this entire region. It is being fed continuously from the south by tropical moisture from Bertha's broader circulation, and it is not going anywhere on any meaningful timescale today. The Storm Prediction Center has issued a moderate risk of excessive rainfall for areas including Roanoke Rapids and Virginia Beach specifically, which is a serious and relatively unusual designation, not something forecasters assign casually or lightly. If you want a concrete reference point for what this level of moisture concentration is capable of producing, consider this. Just yesterday in northern West Virginia, a Walmart was completely and catastrophically inundated during an active flash flood emergency. That event happened just one day ago in a nearby region under a similar moisture regime. Today, that same general moisture pattern is pushing directly into North Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland. I cannot rule out flash flooding of a similar severity happening in those states today. The threat is immediate, it is serious, and it demands your complete attention right now. In terms of actual rainfall totals, the numbers being projected for some of the hardest hit localized corridors are genuinely staggering when you see them on paper. Tonight alone, areas in and around Williamsburg, Exmoor, and Cape Charles are currently running the risk of receiving 5 to 7 inches of rainfall in a relatively compressed time window. When you receive 5 to 7 inches of rain in a short period of time, you're talking about conditions that can overwhelm entire drainage systems completely, flood roads from curb to curb across wide areas, make many low-lying zones entirely impassable for vehicles of any kind, and push water into homes and businesses that have never flooded before. And if tonight sounds alarming, tomorrow is actually where the flood threat expands dramatically in both geographic scale and potential intensity. By tomorrow afternoon and into tomorrow evening, that heavy rain signature broadens across a considerably wider area. Locations near Winston-Salem could easily see upwards of 3 inches of rain. And scattered across the broader region, there will be localized corridors, not isolated spots, but genuine corridors of extreme rainfall, where totals could reach 7, 8, even 9 inches of rain as the full system develops, and the tropical moisture from Bertha aggressively interacts with the pre-existing frontal boundary and the stalled training convection we already have in place. Now, I want to be transparent with you about the realistic distribution of those extreme numbers. The vast majority of locations across this region will likely end up with 1 to 3 inches of total rainfall when all is said and done over the next 48 hours. That is still meaningful rainfall, enough to cause road flooding and some minor stream flooding in the most vulnerable spots. But in a complex, moisture-saturated storm event of this nature, it only takes 1 or 2 corridors of extreme localized rainfall to produce catastrophic flash flooding that can be genuinely life-threatening. And based on everything we are seeing right now, there are going to be multiple such corridors embedded within this event. The threat is real, it is distributed across a large area, and it is not going to fully wind down until Friday at the earliest. If you live anywhere in the affected zone, the coastal plain of North Carolina, the Tidewater and Hampton Roads region of Virginia, the Delmarva Peninsula, the eastern shore of Maryland, the inner coastal areas from Williamsburg northward, please take this warning seriously and act accordingly. We are talking about some of the most flood-prone terrain in the entire eastern United States. Terrain that has a long historical record of dangerous flash flooding events, and that terrain is about to face one of its more significant tests in recent years. Do not, under any circumstances, attempt to drive through a flooded roadway. Turn around, don't drown. I know you have heard that phrase before, but I'm going to say it again because it reflects a fundamental truth. The vast majority of flood-related fatalities in the United States involve people who drove into or through floodwaters. The water may look shallow, it may look passable, and it may carry you off the road in a matter of seconds anyway. Please stay off flooded roads entirely. If you live in a low-lying area, stay on high alert and be prepared to evacuate quickly if conditions deteriorate. Talk to your neighbors. Share this forecast information with your family. Not everyone is going to be monitoring the weather closely over the next 24 hours. And this is exactly the type of event where lives are lost simply because people did not know how serious the threat was until it was too late. And if you are getting value from this kind of detailed, ongoing coverage, make sure you are subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on. We are going to be monitoring this entire situation continuously as it evolves through today, tonight, and into tomorrow. And you deserve the most current and most accurate information available every step of the way. Now let's shift fully to Tropical Storm Bertha, because this is the other major actor in today's and tomorrow's forecast, and it warrants a complete, honest, detailed breakdown so you know exactly what to expect. Bertha has actually intensified over the past 12 to 24 hours as it has moved across the Gulf of Mexico. Currently, it is sitting at maximum sustained winds of approximately 60 miles per hour, which technically puts it just below hurricane strength classification. I understand that number alone might trigger alarm for people along the Gulf Coast. And I want to give you the full context, so you can assess the real risk level accurately rather than reacting to a single data point. Here is what is critically important to understand about Bertha's current structure. There is a pronounced, visible disconnect between where the storm's actual area of circulation is located, the spinning low-pressure center, the true core of the tropical cyclone, and where the deepest convection, the tallest cumulonimbus towers, and the heaviest rainfall are concentrated. That convection is displaced far to the south of New Orleans, entirely removed from the circulation center. In the low-level cloud imagery, you can faintly trace where the actual rotation is occurring, and it is separated by a significant distance from all that deep convective activity. This kind of disorganized, sheared structure is a direct and unmistakable signature of strong environmental wind shear actively tearing the storm apart from the outside in. The wind shear is physically preventing the deep convective towers from wrapping tightly around the circulation center, which is exactly the process a tropical cyclone requires to strengthen. Without that wrapping convection consolidating the warm core structure, Bertha simply cannot organize further. In short, the atmosphere is dismantling the storm even as it approaches landfall, and that is genuinely good news. If that wind shear environment were not present over the Gulf right now, we would almost certainly be tracking a hurricane bearing down on the Louisiana coast this evening. Instead, we have a weakening, disorganized tropical storm. According to the National Hurricane Center's latest forecast track and intensity guidance, Bertha will continue a gradual weakening trend as it approaches the Louisiana shoreline. Landfall is currently projected near Port Sulphur, Louisiana, sometime later this afternoon into the early evening hours, with maximum sustained winds estimated near 50 miles per hour at the time of landfall. After making landfall in Louisiana, the storm will continue to lose intensity as it interacts with land, friction, and the ongoing hostile wind shear environment. There's a scenario in which the weakening system could make a secondary landfall near the Houston, Texas area sometime on Thursday, but by that point it would be an extremely weak tropical cyclone with maximum sustained winds of approximately 40 miles per hour. That system, if it holds together that long, would still be capable of producing localized impacts, but it would be a far cry from what we are tracking today. Let me go through each specific impact category from Bertha. On rainfall, one of the more genuinely counterintuitive aspects of this particular storm system is that rainfall totals from Bertha itself are going to run lower than you would typically expect from a Gulf tropical cyclone of even this modest intensity. The same wind shear dismantling the storm's structure is simultaneously pulling dry air into the northern and central portions of the circulation, actively suppressing rainfall production. Near the Louisiana coast today, tropical shower coverage will be scattered and relatively minimal rather than widespread and continuous. Some areas just south of New Orleans may experience flooding rainfall tonight as the circulation makes landfall, but that will remain localized rather than regional in scope. A possible batch of moisture pushing toward Houston and Corpus Christi on Thursday represents a localized flooding threat for South and East Texas, but that scenario carries significant uncertainty at this range. Overall, rainfall from Bertha will likely run a half inch to a couple of inches across most areas, with isolated spots reaching 3 to 4 inches. Localized flooding is possible in those heavier rain pockets, but widespread catastrophic flooding from the tropical rainfall alone is not anticipated. On wind, Bertha's winds will be most impactful closest to the landfall zone and near the coast. The high-resolution modeling currently projects gusts of 50 to 55 miles per hour near the center of circulation, with some outer bands reaching up toward 60 miles per hour near the immediate coast. Further east, along the Gulf shoreline, in areas like Mobile and Pensacola, peak wind gusts will likely run in the 40 to 50 miles per hour range. That is enough to produce tree damage, scattered power outages, and dangerous outdoor conditions in the most exposed coastal areas, but it does not rise to the level of catastrophic wind destruction we have seen from stronger Gulf landfalls in recent years. The highest winds will be concentrated tonight and into early tomorrow morning near the Louisiana coast, and by later Thursday, the wind threat should be diminishing significantly across the region. Storm surge, however, is the impact from Bertha that concerns me most, and it deserves to be stated clearly and directly. Storm surge is not just water. It is the abnormal wind-driven rise of ocean water, pushed inland and into estuaries, bays, and low-lying coastal zones at a speed and depth that can be genuinely life-threatening. From Bertha, we are currently looking at up to 4 feet of storm surge possible from the mouth of the Mississippi River back toward the Mississippi-Alabama state border. From approximately Mobile eastward, back toward the Okaloosa River area in the Florida Panhandle, storm surge projections run up to 3 feet. Over near Cameron, Louisiana, through the mouth of the Mississippi River, we are also looking at up to 3 feet of storm surge potential. 3 to 4 feet of storm surge can rapidly inundate coastal homes, strand vehicles, block evacuation routes, and create deadly conditions in low-lying neighborhoods and waterfront communities with very little warning time. Please heed any evacuation guidance or flood watch orders issued by your local emergency management officials. Do not wait to see the water rising before you act. For viewers who are located well inland from the immediate Gulf coastline, Bertha's direct impacts will be considerably more manageable. Gusty winds, some tropical moisture, scattered showers. The really serious concern is tightly focused on that coastal zone. I want to give you an honest, calibrated assessment. Bertha is not going to be a catastrophic storm by Gulf Coast historical standards. It is a relatively weak and disorganized system by comparison to the major hurricane landfalls this region has experienced in recent years. But the storm surge threat is real, even for weaker tropical systems. The rainfall flooding threat is compounded by everything else happening across the region simultaneously, and in combination with the East Coast flood event, this 48-hour window is genuinely one of the most active and dangerous multi-day weather periods we have tracked this year. Looking ahead into the end of the week and toward next week, the pattern should quiet down significantly across most of the country once this frontal system sweeps through and Bertha dissipates. A ridge building across the southern plains will suppress organized severe weather through the latter portion of this week. But by the late weekend, as we move toward Sunday and into Monday, a significant jet stream dip is expected to develop across the Midwest and Ohio Valley region. That pattern is a well-recognized precursor to widespread severe weather outbreaks, and right now it looks like severe weather events could return to the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Northeast somewhere around Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. We are tracking it carefully. Details will sharpen considerably as we get closer to that time window, and we will have dedicated coverage as it develops. What I can tell you with confidence is that the last several days of July and potentially into early August are looking active from a severe weather standpoint. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss those updates when they come. The bottom line is straightforward. The next 48 hours demand your full attention if you live across a wide band of this country. Flash flooding is the greatest immediate threat across the East Coast, from the Carolinas through Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware. Stay off flooded roads, stay alert, and stay connected to current forecasts. If you are in Maine, the severe weather window this afternoon is real and deserves your preparation. And if you live along the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle, Tropical Storm Bertha's storm surge is your primary concern tonight. Thank you for watching. Stay safe out there, and we will see you in the next update.